Well, hello there. It's another Sunday, and we're here together. Unless you're watching this on the recorded, in which case it's still Sunday now, and it's whenever you're watching it. Howdy. Let's see who all we got in the chat today. We got Titan Mary H, Gene Hudson, and CJ. Howdy, CJ. Let's see what Titan was saying up here. In the house. Rodney Brown. Not familiar with him, so I'll just keep on moving. Although there is a hey Eddie Overbay. What I'm going to say is I was just listening to Vodi Bakum, who I generally love, but he comes out of the Reformed tradition, so his view of eschatology is just wrong. And I was just listening to something, and it's like, I'm like, don't push that button. Don't do it. You know there's nothing to be found there, but being upset before the show, before the broadcast, I did it anyway. Anyway, like I said, I love Vodi Bakum, but he comes to the Reformed. Again, I love all people. There are things about each tradition that I like. Then there's the parts they just get really wrong. In the Reformed, they're coming, and a lot of the Reformed theologians come out of a more preterist view, sort of, they sort of have this idea that, there is no 1,000-year reign. We shouldn't be looking to the book of Revelation for, how history is going to play out, kind of a view. And it's like, whatever. Anyway, I knew it, and I did it anyway. But we're here. That's all that matters. So yeah, I did have, like I said, I pushed back the Apocrypha study a little bit because I did have something to talk about today, but I'm not there yet. Like I thought I was there, and it's like, nah, God's still talking. It's still being worked out. So we're gonna push it out and just have a chit chat about some things that are going on. Good morning, cheese freak and bat mom. So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, no, I've never heard of this Rodney Brown. I have to admit, the longer things go, the more and more I'm less impressed with higher education. Is all I'm going to say. I'm going to save that for the next one. So yeah, we're just going to chit chat about some things that have happened. Probably call it a little early. We got things to do. But yeah, no, I knew it too. I had been listening to Jordan Peterson talk, or someone talking about Jordan Peterson talking to Joe Rogan, explaining the cross, right? And going back to Moses and the lifting up of the serpent and that. And the thing that was, and this is just chit chat before we get started, is one of the things that sort of occurred to me this morning is I think one of the many areas the church has gone wrong is that in the modern age is that we've sort of rejected the idea of a sort of the Bible and scriptural stories as having psychological meaning, right? I think oftentimes we try so hard to look at it from just one perspective that we realize that these stories are written poetically. Because that was how people thought, right? That was the traditional way of doing things, but also because it makes it more applicable. It just does, right? It gives these things broader meaning. The stories then they're being invited to be read differently, including what we would now call, a psychological, from a sort of a psychological perspective, and then gain meaning from that as well. And I think we've The problem is the people who tend to do it tend to be secularists, so they want to remove the supernatural aspect from it, which is why they're wrong. But then I think the modern church is also wrong for rejecting sort of the psychological view of these things, because we're stuck in only stuck in this one-dimensional reading of the text. So it's oh, hey Lisa. I was just thinking about that as well. It's like, maybe we need to, like, the problem is we are reactionary. Humans are very reactionary to things. And so instead of just running around and just reacting and saying, oh, no, that can't possibly be it, because you've removed this, it's like, take some of their points. Hey, Mason's there. Howdy. Instead of saying, hey, let's just reject everything out of hand, we should probably listen to it. And I think where Jordan Peterson's coming from is he's actually, I don't think he's a Christian yet. That's a very different thing. But he's left from being an agnostic to looking at the Bible as something more meaningful. And I think some of these psychological observations are valid. They just, and again, because the way the text is written, the text of the Bible is written in such a way that we are to understand it in a myriad of ways. That's why they're written as stories. That's why they're written poetically. So just an interesting observation. And then I saw the thing on Bodhi Bacham, and I was like, well, let me see what they say. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Like I said, love Bodhi Bacham. Really do. Actually, I do. I like a lot of the people who come out of the Reformed tradition, except for their eschatology. Eschatology is just wrong. Like I said, everyone's got one thing that, or in aspects of their traditions that are good. The problem is we've separated, and so everyone sort of went their own way, right? We've got to bring everyone back together. But I'm not done with that thought yet. That thought is out there. I need to let it percolate more. God's working with me on it, so I'm gonna put that off, and I'll come back to that thought once I've got it figured out. So I think today is going to be a little bit more relaxed, more of a hangout. Had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday, and maybe we can go over that. And I think some of y'all are going to enjoy it. But it's still intertwined in what's going on in my head recently, so it is what it is. Let's see. It is the 13th. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So I guess we got to buy cards and flowers now. See, here's the thing: we don't actually do anything. Just a little behind the scenes. We don't do anything for Valentine's Day. Never have. And it's not because we're like, we oppose this artificial. No, I have no problem with that. We're actually going to have a Super Bowl party, but we're absolutely not watching the Super Bowl today, right? It's like sometimes you got to have touchstones, but I don't. And here's the thing: we traditionally did watch the Super Bowl, but I'm done with all of it. Just all this crap. But we're still going to have the party. So again, I'm not really opposed to. We're just going to do something else for it. But it's like I'm not opposed to Valentine's Day or sort of artificial. It's like these things, traditions, touchstones. These things do matter culturally. They matter for everyone. But we've never done Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day because it's never worked out. It's a terrible if we just said nope. We will do Valentine's Day on any other day but the 14th. Straight up. So, anyway. But you do it your way. Gene Hudson says it should be Valentine's Day every day. Would be less divorce. Well, absolutely. And you know what? That's actually kind of my perspective as well. It's like you shouldn't... well, like I said, Lisa, we're not even watching the Super Bowl. It's just... we're having the party. Sometimes you just gotta have queso is the way I look at it. But yeah, like every day should be Valentine's Day. Now the problem is what we've made the expression of love material goods and services, and really it's material goods and services only going one way. Let's note that. Like, all the gifts are going from the male to the female. Just saying. But yeah, every day should be Valentine's Day. There should be, like you said, it's the daily things that matter in the long run anyway. So, but yeah, like I said, we don't do it on, yeah, we just don't do it on the 14th. Doesn't work out. Well, so yeah, okay, we can talk about the truckers a little bit. I think there is some interesting supernatural or spiritual well, actually, the problem is the overlap is exactly kind of the thing I was talking about. It's still percolating in my head, so we'll just say hooray for the truckers. Although I will say this, as much as I think the truckers, again, fully support the truckers, and again, they should be doing what they're doing. We should all be doing something somehow. And I don't think it's necessarily avoidable, but I just saw Lisa Lou. See, here's the problem, Lisa. It would be cooler if that pronunciation had something to do with was inspired by Babylon 5, but I don't think it is. So, Valentine's Day, the Mimbari, not born of Mimbar. Anyway, back to the truckers. We are really seeing this drive, right? No pun intended, but that one was actually really funny. To make them out to be evil, and by the mainstream media, and everyone's like, well, it's not working. Well, it's not working amongst the people who agree with the truckers. See, that's the problem. And I very easily see, particularly the government we have in our country, because now we're seeing some truckers form their own caravan here for March. I get the very distinct feeling it's going to get ugly fast. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing military action more than just the, more than just the police the police harassing people. It's going to be like we're going to start seeing some people getting shot pretty fast, I think, and particularly with the government we have in this country, when our things happen, it's going to get violent fast. They're going to just, again, everyone seems to forget that they actually had ordered and requested a crewman belt-fed machine gun as defense for January 6th. For the inauguration. For the inauguration, not even Jan 6th, it was the inauguration. They wanted a crew fit. For those of you who don't understand what that is a 50 caliber. There's a 50 caliber machine gun, full automatic machine gun with and of course all rounds they're going to be a copper coated round. So when they let loose, you're killing everyone in the crowd. That was what our government wanted to use against the American citizens. So, hey, Daniela. So, like I said, if the truckers here, start protesting, again, I fully support them. I am worried that particularly with our current administration, that they will use the military on our citizens, straight up. I've got no expectation that they won't. So, anyway, coleslaw. Well, here's my problem, Danielle. Now I'm worried that I'm wondering what coleslaw means to you. Like, is it the same coleslaw we have here? And we can't even talk about it tonight because I know we have a very special guest or guests coming on. So we can't even have the conversation as to what does coleslaw mean to you. Mostly it's shredded cabbage. Some people put onions in it with mayo, a few other ingredients. It really, I mean, again, there are many varied, but yeah, shredded coleslaw, mayo, stuff like that. We can save that for next week's show. All right, we'll go ahead and we're 15 minutes into this. We'll go ahead and open with some prayer, and then we'll kick it off. Like I said, we're going to do more of a hangout because the thing I wanted to talk about today, it's still, I don't feel it's percolated enough, and so we'll get into it on a different day. So we're just going to hang out. But I want to start with the conversation I had yesterday with someone that y'all will enjoy. Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you for all that you've done. Father, you've brought us to this time. You've brought us together, and we thank you for that. You've made us part of your family. Father, give us the wisdom and the strength to be your hands and feet in this world that needs it so desperately. Help us to have hope when the world is going the wrong direction. Help us to see where we are in your scheme, in your plan, your timeline. Help us to remember that we are here for a reason. That is to get people off of this sinking ship that is the world and into the kingdom. Father, give us patience when we should have patience, and courage when we should stand. Give us wisdom to speak the right words, and the time to know when actions must speak louder. Father, we thank you for all the things that you've done and will do. And we ask that you make us worthy of you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. So, has that always been there? Anyway. Yes. Oh. Yeah, let's Bob's actually doing so. Yeah, Bob's doing well. He's actually doing pretty well. Alan right now is looking. They are trying to build their own structure right now. So they are looking for people to help fund that. So they're, of course, again, being that it is Kenya, and they're in a poor area, it's definitely a problem for them. But that is the current thing. So, and let's not forget, again, end of the month is going to come pretty quick because this is a short month. So if you have, $5 or $10, it's going to mean more to Alan than a lot of people. So conversation I had yesterday, some of Christy's family, my wife, was in town. We hadn't seen them in like 20 years. I was starting to notice how often the word 20 years shows up, and it's still post Y2K, and I'm like, oh. Because sometimes you say 20 years, you're not meaning exactly 20 years. It could be 18 years. It could be 21, 22 years, right? It's just sort of that general plus or minus range, but it's like, yeah, 20 years is starting to get, it's all becoming post Y2K, and that bothers me. It means my gray hairs are earned. Anyway, so I hadn't seen him in 20 years, right? So he's got kids we've never met, whole 9 yards. So we're chatting, and he made the mistake of asking a question. And we prefaced it with, don't ask this question if you don't want the answer. Bob was there. He's like, hold on. You're about to ask a question of Jason. Please understand what's about to happen here. Don't ask this question. You don't want that answer. He asked anyway. So he said, oh, so you know about the Giants? Yeah. It's come up. Anyway, so I will not rehash the entire conversation. We've had parts of this conversation over the many years that we've been doing, or over the years that we've done this. So moving on. But it was, he was talking about how there's a guy in his crew. They do a lot of construction, stuff like that, painting. That I assure you, I know nothing about the New York Giants. But it was, he's like, yeah, they're talking to me. It's like, it's just hard because you can't just like look at an article. And of course, they got onto what is expertise? What is, what does an expert actually look like? How do we trust? Do we trust? To give us information. What does actually educating yourself look like? And of course, part of that conversation is also the fact that the Nephilim, the giants, are the key to unlocking the scriptures. There are so many things that if you don't understand, they don't make sense. Like, why does Jesus, after his resurrection, he's on the beach cooking fish, but he eats food given to him by the apostles? Why? Seems an odd thing to do, except unless you understand the book of Enoch. Again, head coverings being for the angels. Why? That's the book of Enoch. It's on and on and on. If you understand the Nephilim, like, why does Jesus spend so much of his time exorcising demons? Again, you got to understand the book of Enoch to understand why he's doing that. Also, as we've been in Hebrews, how many of the quotations from the Old Testament about that the writers of Hebrews are using to point to Jesus are prophecies from the Psalms written by David? Again, it's one of those things where it's like you have to understand. Once you understand Enoch, once you understand the giants and what the Nephilim are, then his behavior and focus on exorcism makes more sense because he is the son of David, right? Coming out of that lineage, that's the whole point, is that he's the prophesied return of David. Well, what does that matter? He's also, his name is Yeshua, which we would translate as Joshua. He's the second Joshua. That's why he's spending all his time doing what? Driving demons out of Israelites. Why? Well, what did Joshua do? On and on it goes. It's the importance of this theology that the modern church has completely rejected. Gene, I'm going to answer that question here in a second. It's just the importance of this whole theology that the modern church ignores, doesn't talk about it at all because it's scared of it. It doesn't want to talk about it, and that's problematic for me. Anyway, but we were talking about the importance of the Nephilim. What does it mean? Why do we need to go back and read the book of Enoch and understand the quotations? Why? What's the worldview being done? Because I'm going to, please start sending in questions because I'm going to get into this, and I don't want to get into it until my head is fully wrapped around it. But I'll say this: there's so many. Trying to be really careful here because I don't want to say something when my mind's not fully wrapped around it, but I understand why people have different eschatologies, right? I get it. I can disagree with them, but I don't think they're necessarily doing it because they don't want, there's a misreading or misunderstanding, or there's just a different viewpoint. I get that. But I think that the fundamental rejection of the giants, of the Nephilim, on a fundamental level means the modern church does not really believe the Bible. Now, as I've stated 100 times, and I'll say it 1,000 times more, to take the Bible seriously, to really believe the Bible, does not require you to be a young earth creationist. It doesn't. There's a lot of ways you can. I'm open to many interpretations. I am young earth. I'm flexible as what young earth means. Is it 6? Is it 7 from the Septuagint? Is it 15? Whatever. I'm flexible. Open. I think there are many things that you can read from a. I think you can honestly read the Bible and come to very different conclusions on origins, on a lot of things. There's a lot of things I think you can honestly read it and fine, we disagree. No problem. Christian brethren. Again, eschatology is one of those things. Again, love Vodi Bakum. Since I mentioned Vodi Bakum at the beginning, love Vodi Bakum, love my Reformed brethren. I just think they're wrong. I disagree. But that's a conversation to have. But the rejection of the Nephilim and the understanding around it, I think, is of really what they're rejecting is the supernatural worldview. That's what's being rejected. And that's where you start getting into trouble, as far as I'm concerned. I think fundamentally it's because they don't believe the Bible. They give it lip service, but they don't really. And that's very much where I think my head has been for a while on a lot of topics. And we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about that once I've fully formulated, because it is sort of an all-encompassing worldview that's sort of popping up. To Gene's question, no, Jesus was not afraid of poison. He was resurrected. He wasn't afraid of anything. In the book of Enoch, we are told explicitly that the Nephilim cannot eat or drink. They're intangible as well. And that's part of their punishment, is that they go forth hungry and thirsty. So because of Jesus' claim to be both God and man, we need to understand from an early worldview, from a first century worldview. Hey, Tex. Great logo you have there. Anyway, moving on. From a first century worldview, we have to remember all of the ancient nations, right? They claimed that they had god kings, right? That they were created from these god kings. Well, again, as we see very much in the Septuagint, and it's very clear, First Peter supports all this. The Nephilim post flood are sort of the originators of a lot of these empires. They created it. And so, again, what is their claim? That they were God kings. Well, Jesus is making the same claim. It's just that he's actually God. But what he does post-resurrection is prove that he's not a Nephilim. That's one of those things that people, again, because we don't have the Nephilim as part of our theology, we don't recognize what he's doing. He's showing, I'm really here. I'm not a ghost. I am not a demon. I am not me being, but obviously Jesus. Jesus is saying, hey, touch me, give me your food. It's in order to showcase that he's truly the resurrected Christ. He is not, he's not some demon tricking them into believing that he is that he's God. He's actually God. He's actually the first fruits of the resurrection. That's why these things are important. That's why he goes out. So, and that's the thing. Whenever the Bible does something or talks about something, and it seems weird, we have to understand it's trying to tell you something else. Remember, when Jesus is asked by John the Baptist's disciples, like, hey, are you really Christ? Because John's getting ready to die here, and he wants to know that he's done the right thing, because he's supposed to be the one to usher in the Messiah. He knew he was he had the spirit of Elijah. He understood his role, and he pointed to you, and now he knows he's going to die. He just wants to know that he hasn't failed. Jesus doesn't tell his disciple or tell John's disciples, hey, go smack him upside the head. Go tell my cousin and smack him upside the head and tell him he knows who I am. He knows it's fine. It's groovy. He doesn't do that. He makes them watch his behavior. Watch what he tells John's disciples to watch what he does. Heal the sick, heal the blind, preach the gospel. What's he doing? He's showing them that he's fulfilling Scripture. At first, it seems odd, and then you realize what he's doing. He is showing the script. He's telling him the Scripture. So why is that important? because John already knows the scriptures are true. It's the same thing that happens with Job. God gives Job all the reasons Job already believed in God. That's what Jesus does. So anytime we see something really weird happening, like why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? That's where you got to dig a little deeper and say, hey, they're trying to tell us something here. What Jesus is doing is showing his disciples that he's not Nephilim, that he's exactly what he claimed to be. He's not the imitation. He's the real deal. So, yeah, I mean, just that's the conversation that we were having. And it just really impressed upon me how much, because even though you know things, sometimes you have to, you relearn the same lesson over and over again. It happens to me all the time because I'm an idiot. But just the importance of the Nephilim and integrating it properly into theology. I think as many people who look into the Nephilim and the question of Nephilim, I think they then point to them as everything. Same thing with like Babylon, right? It's like this all comes out of Babylon. No, it doesn't. And again, love everyone. Unfortunately, a lot of people on our side of this, sort of, hey, let's really discover what's going on here with the world. Everyone points, it's like it all comes out of Babylon. Like the whole Tammuz being the son of Nimrod, and it's like that's not. I see how you got there, but you're kind of making you're making a lot of leaps there, like a ballet dancer. It's like here, boom. I'm like, you're missing a lot here, right? It's again, it's a critique, not a chastisement, but unfortunately, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people on our side do put too much emphasis on them, right? They put too much emphasis on a lot of things. And it's like, hold on, we just need to put things back where they belong to understand what's happening here, right? And we're good. So yeah, no, Jesus wasn't worried about poison. He was demonstrating, again, through actions, what he really was, which was a living. Because think about it. We see him cooking fish on the beach, right? But he asks for their food. He eats the food the apostles give him. Again, why is he cooking fish in the first place? Well, he's kind of showing these tangible, but the reason he eats the food from the apostles is to show them that he can actually eat food that's not an illusion, right? Because someone could make the claim, well, they see him cooking fish. He eats that fish. But do we know that the fish was actually there and it wasn't some kind of, magical illusion used by, that's what they're saying, that's a claim that could be made. So by the disciples giving him food, him asking for their food and him eating their food, we know that he's physical. He's telling them what he really is, which is the resurrected Christ. So again, First Peter, what's he doing? It's an allusion to the book of Enoch. That's how because he's taking captivity captive, right? It's an interesting thing, and the problem is to have this conversation fully is to get into these other topics that I'm still trying to wrap my brain around because I don't want to go off half-cocked on this one. Let's just say that I think here we are. A sentence came to me a couple months ago. I used it on the Truth Defender podcast because there was something someone had said to me. I won't use any names, but the person had been important to me for a long time. And they said something to me, and it's been in the back of my head. It's like, did I screw up somewhere along the line? And saying, I was supposed to have gone to Dallas Theological Seminary. I was supposed to move to Israel and be one of those pastors in Israel. And I'm like, and it bugged me because it's like, did I screw up? And I was thinking, like, I can't really get into politics now because I am radioactive, right? I'm over here talking about UFOs and Bigfoot and eschatology. Like I'm basically I'm a more attractive version of Alex Jones, just not talking about the frogs being gay all that often. But so now I'm basically radioactive. I can't have a political career. Or even, have a political show under my name. I'm not hinting at anything. I can't do these things. And I was just sitting there thinking about it. And this happened like 2 months ago, 3 months ago now. And before I went to the Truth Defender podcast. And just what she was saying, what she had said was just in my head. And I'm like, well, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm like, because it's easy to look at what we talk about and think, and all the things I write on and all the things that I do make videos on, just think it's so esoteric, right? It is so completely, most people don't need or don't really have a problem with this stuff, right? One way or another. Most people don't. And it's like they're, so I was just asking him, just in my head, it's like, did I screw up somewhere along wrong? Apparently I'm Scooby-Doo now. Along the way, did I make the wrong decision to get into all this and to be public about all this? And the thing that came to my mind, and again, so whenever it's a sentence, I know it's the Holy Spirit because I don't think in text, I don't think in words, I think in images. So whenever something just pops in my head and it's like a full sentence, or it comes out of my mouth as a full sentence, I didn't even realize I was thinking about it. It's like, okay, that's the Holy Spirit talking. And the sentence was this: politics. It was politics, culture, and philosophy are the children of worldview. And worldview is what I'm about. Ultimately, it's the biblical worldview. And that's what I've realized, that the biggest problem that we're having is that we truly don't have a biblical worldview. The church in America specifically, and in the West in general, does not have a biblical worldview. They will claim to, but they don't. Not really. Because the worldview of the Bible is pretty wild. And our modern culture doesn't like it, because it does call a lot of things into question that, again, it's hard to get into this without getting into, again, what's been in my head. So yeah, this is what's in my head. What is it, we've talked about the kingdom for a long time. Like, what is the biblical meaning of the kingdom? And that it is a real kingdom. This is not a metaphor. It is real. It is an actual thing that we are a part of. Well, what do our responsibilities to that kingdom, where do they lie? How do they manifest in the world that we live in today, or the world we've ever lived in? So a lot of that is here. And again, it goes back to the worldview. And it's like, well, hold on. If the Deuteronomy 32 worldview is correct, and it is, because it's the Bible, so it is, what does that mean about a lot of things? Right? And and something that's been in my head for a while that I'm really asking in this. It's really hard, right? Again, I just don't. The problem is there's so many connections, and it's like, if I don't want to get too far off on it, and I don't. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll answer Titan's question. No, it's not that he didn't believe the Nephilim per se. He just didn't understand them, right? It's just not anything that he had been addressed theologically. And a friend of his was talking about it, and he just didn't know what to do. Like, what is it? I think the problem is most people don't. Again, most people I have to be very specific when I say this, the Western church tradition do not ever think about the Nephilim. They don't know what to do with it. And in fact, this is one of those weird things about humans. We will just compartmentalize the thing and then move it off to the side and be done with it forever. Right? The Nephilim, I would argue, for most people, it's not that they even one way or the other look. It's like, well, this is not a thing that's a thing, or I fully reject this theory and I go with the Sethite theory. I think the 99% of well, maybe 95 now. People have talked about it for a while. But 95% of the church of Christians who read Genesis 6, assuming they've even read Genesis 6, assuming they've even read Genesis or the Old Testament, just say, it's weird, I don't know what to do with it. And they box it up. And they put that box inside of another box and they nail it to themselves and they smash it with a hammer. Okay. Like 3 people got that joke. They compartmentalize it, ship it off to be stored next to the Ark of the Covenant at the end of Indiana Jones. They just don't deal with it, right? MC Hammer, Mary H. MC Hammer. It's so again, I think the problem is with all Goliath. Well, it's like, well, he's a giant. And again, we've talked about how big should Goliath be, and it's like, well, between 9.5 to 11 feet. But some people just say, well, he's just a really tall guy, right? Titan is absolutely true. Titan said, for those of you listening, says, interesting irony that they will not subscribe to the Nephilim but want to fight demons. And it's like, yeah, but again, human beings are irrational, emotional creatures. Probably I didn't realize how profound it was. I think it was something I want to say it was Tim Pool, but he mentioned it off the cuff, and he was talking about, I think he said a while ago, and it just hit me as how it didn't strike me as how profound a statement it was until really night before last. But so we all know the infamous statement, facts don't care about your feelings. They mentioned that the inverse is then therefore also true, which is feelings don't care about your facts. Let me say that again. Feelings don't care about your facts, and we are highly emotional creatures. A lot of people don't care. It's about the emotion. And so any fact that conflicts with their emotions or stirs up an emotion that they don't like, fear is a very, very strong motivator. And the vast majority of Christians are not afraid of God. They are afraid of man. Yeah, I went there. That's kind of what I wanted. That's kind of the thing I'm thinking about. So we'll leave it there. Exactly. I mean, so it goes back to it's just, again, people are contradictory, and the church isn't helping out. I'm gonna stop. I gotta stop there. I'm gonna get off on this topic, and it's a whole thing. So yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, for them, Goliath is just a tall dude. He's a basketball player. In fact, if you were to ask people how tall Goliath was, they'd just say really tall. Because even like the church doesn't even address like what does it mean by 6 cubits, right? In the Masoretic text, right? What does that mean? Well, because the Septuagint says he's 4 cubits. What's happening there? What's the discrepancy? What is that? And they'll say, well, a cubit is 18 inches. Well, was it actually 18 inches? Because, it's a much more complicated topic. The problem is they go with the easy answer and they don't want the hard answer. They don't want to deal with again, we don't have a supernatural worldview. The church, the American mainline church today, does not believe in a supernatural worldview. Yes, Lisa, I laugh every time I hear this. I'm spiritual, not religious. Hey, Brunson. Usually what that means is you're going to have a really complicated order at Starbucks. That's what I found. And what it means is you want to pick and choose what you believe. It's like, I want to take this from this people and this from this. It's like, whoa. Those are entirely contradictory worldviews. The reason they believe this is X, Y, Z, and the reason this religion believes that is X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, I just want to pick and choose what makes me happy. Well, okay, but that's not, A, it's certainly not believing in the Bible, and B, it just means you're just making up your own religion. That's it. Like I said, Usually when I hear people say I'm religious or I'm spiritual but not religious, all I hear is I want a half calf venti chai latte with cinnamon and a sprinkling of chocolate with a dash of espresso. It's like it's just that's all it's gonna be. It's gonna be that what is gonna be that Birkenstock wearing hippie who is giving uh, a coffee order that with ingredients the size, the list of the KFC recipe. Just no. Uh-uh. So yeah. Anyway, but it goes back, but here's the problem. As much as I'm happy to, as much as I'll say that, but that's very much the way the modern church is. It is, oh my gosh, I'm getting off on it. I gotta stop doing that. It's we pick the verses we like, we reject the churches or the verses that we don't. And the verses we don't like, more often than not, are the ones that talk about the supernatural worldview. Tex, that is that's okay. Okay, so Tex, I've been trying to avoid this the entire broadcast but that's kind of where I'm at. It's he said, what if you believe on the Bible but have no faith in today's churches? Yeah. So anyway, we're 47 minutes in. Unless anyone's got a really interesting question, I think we're going to kill it there because I can already see me pole vaulting into the next 2 hours with that. Well, like I said, I'm working on this. So, sometimes you go off half cocked. I've done it plenty of times. Like we've lost people because of things I've said. Again, it's biblical, spiritual, but we've lost people because they didn't want to hear it. And that's fine. It's like if you don't want to hear the truth, I got no problem with that. Like that's between you and God. But at the same time, I want to make certain I'm saying it correctly because you can say the right thing in the wrong way. So, and again, it's the elephant that I will address. It's just there's more to it than that. Well, but Tex, you're still being religious. See, that's the thing. Because when most people say I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, what it means is they pick and choose what they want to believe, and they don't. Again, if you have faith in the Bible, you are religious. Now, and this is a good. You know what? That we get in on that idea. That's a great point. We have to define our terms, right? That's a great point. We have to define our terms because I think what most people mean by spiritual versus religious is they don't want the actual teaching. But I could see your point where they don't want the specific dogma from a specific denomination, like an official church, like the Roman Catholic Church or the Greek Orthodox Church or the Southern Baptist, denomination. Essentially, you're looking at the base for, again, you're looking at the text, which again goes back to my whole point. We don't actually look at the text anymore. We're looking at what other people said about the text. So to your point, I think a lot of people agree with that they've lost faith in the organizations, right? But the problem is I think a lot of people, when they say I'm spiritual, not religious, they don't mean what you mean, which is, hey, I'm done with the organized upper echelon hierarchical structures of, man, or the denominational things. What most people say when they mean I'm not religious, they mean is I don't read the Bible and or stick to one particular faith, right? They pick and choose what to believe. So from that perspective, if your view is you're not with the mainstream churches, the main line, like your faith is essentially, if they're, again, never trust a pastor with a $2,000 suit. That's all I'm going to say on that one. But it's like, at least for the time being, it's like you don't have faith in the people on television. You shouldn't have faith in the people on television. In fact, you shouldn't have faith in people at all. People are terrible creatures. And if you work retail for more than a year, you understand that. If you've survived If you've survived Black Friday in retail, you know. But yeah, to that point, there is an absolute difference between, again, if you're like, hey, I'm not denominational, I believe in this, I believe the Bible, I want to, like you said, you want to be a God-fearing man. That's a very different thing, right? For minimalists, I think you're still good. Just saying. Actually, that's so interestingly enough, there's a gentleman I stumbled across him. I forget his name off the top of my head. He was on the he popped on to What Do You Mean to talk about, like, what is Christian love? And the reason it becomes so important for him is that he is literally a psychopath. He is he does, like, the text, like, he actually beat his father. I can't remember. I think he just beat him with a hammer. But he is a full-blown psychopath. The whole emotion thing, he doesn't have them. And so he's reformed to come out, but he's still a psychopath, but he's got a family. And everyone's like, so how can you love someone if you don't have those emotions, right? If you don't understand the emotions. And he points out, love is not the emotion, it's the action, right? I think it's very easy to say, well, this person is an emotional person, therefore he just doesn't feel, or he doesn't have. These are very different things. So just interesting side by, it's okay. Lacking the sensation of an emotion does not mean you don't have them. And it also doesn't mean that you can't do what the Bible calls you to do, which is to love, which is to do what is best for that person. Again, whole conversation of what love is. Lisa Lucid, more native than Christian. Yep. So, yeah, I think we'll end on that, because, like I said, if I go too much further, I am going to jump both feet into the topic. Anyway, long story short, we got to get back to the text. We got to do it ourselves. We can't. It doesn't mean we don't learn from other people. We need to learn from people, but we got to. You can't be, well, my pastor said this, and I believe him because that's what my pastor said. No. If your pastor says something, say, okay, great, let me go check into that. That's it. Like, you should never believe anyone straight up. You should always, you got to do the work. You got to wrestle with God. The word Israel, the name Israel that Jacob is given, which is the name of the nation itself, Israel means to wrestle with God, because that's what he wants us to do. We have to wrestle with the text. What does Isaiah say? Let us reason one unto another. It means between God and man. We are to interact with him. That's what he wants us. He wants us to wrestle with the hard things. He wants us to ask him the questions, because the world, as finite as we are, as amazingly intricate and big as the world is, we're never going to get it all right. We're never going to get it. And even if we get it right from a perspective, we don't have its wholeness, because we can't conceive of its wholeness. But that's okay. We're supposed to be wrestling with him anyway, right? So, on that note, I will leave you wonderful people to the rest of your day. I saw Gene Hudson's question, and okay, so Gene, if I answer it, I'm going to get into the topic. So, I'm going to answer that when I have the answer to that question is going to come with this other conversation. That's all I can say. But yeah, I'll be on Daniela's show tonight, and normal time, because I'm not watching the Super Bowl. And yeah, let's keep Image 1953 in prayers. They're still working on helping her with her oxygen levels. So let's keep her in prayer. But yeah, we're gonna have an interesting guests actually on tonight with Daniela. So definitely go there. And yeah, as you may have noticed with Texas' new look, we're making some changes on that channel as well. More to come on that. On that note, love y'all. Let's wrestle with that text. Let's not put someone else let's not put someone between us and Jesus. Let's face Jesus ourselves. Let's come to the foot of the cross ourselves. And if we come with something that's hard, that's fine. It's okay for things to be hard. Nothing good is ever easy. At least that's what I've learned. See y'all later.